Alright guys, in this video I'm going to be showing you how to merge two photos together using those skills from the last video. And I'm also going to be showing you some more kind of shortcuts, tips, and tricks in order to do so. So in my Photoshop right now, as you can see, I've got two layers. So my first layer is this forest, which is from Adobe Stock. And my second layer is again from Adobe Stock, which is this waterfall scene, which looks like it has some long exposure kind of stuff in there. After that, it's just the transparent background, so there's nothing else, just these two layers. So the first thing I need to do is add my layer mask. I'm going to be adding my layer mask to the forest layer so that when I hide or take away from that forest layer, the waterfall layer shows through. So I'm going to be adding a layer mask right now, which is, again, the paper with the hole in it or the Japanese flag. And when I click on that, it's going to give me this white box. And now what you need to remember is white is always going to reveal. So white right now is revealing my forest layer, where if I had black, black is going to conceal. So it's going to hide that layer. So if you look at my little box now, it's completely black and it's completely hiding that layer, versus if it's a white box, it's revealing it, so it is showing the layer. So just remember, white reveals versus black conceals. So right now, because we have this white box right here, I'm going to be using my black paintbrush to conceal parts of the forest. So as you can see down here, I have my foreground and background set to be white and black. Again, if it wasn't white and black, all I need to do is hit D. It's going to take me back to those default settings. And then I can hit X, which is going to cycle me through the two colors. So I'm going to start with black. And I'm just going to erase to kind of see where I'm at. I'm just going to get kind of this big chunk of this out of the way. I'm also going to turn down the opacity of layer one just so I kind of know and see what I'm working with. What opacity is going to do is it's just going to make that layer a little see-through. And all we need to do now is kind of just follow along and erase whatever I want to erase. As I get closer to the edge, I'm actually going to turn down my flow, and that's going to turn down the flow of the paintbrush. So think of flow as having paint on your brush. If you have a lot of paint on your paintbrush, it's going to be a heavy flow, versus if you have a little bit of paint on your paintbrush, it's going to be a little drier and a little more faded down. So I'm just going to go along the outsides of this one so it isn't as harsh. It kind of almost makes it a little blurry and faded, which is nice. And then I'm also just going to kind of follow this trail down here. You guys can do whatever you'd like to make your composite. I'm going to follow this little trail. And then I'm going to use the bracket keys to make my brush a little bit bigger. So now that I have just about my entire outline complete here, I'm going to make my brush bigger by using the bracket keys. So the bracket keys are the two keys to the right of P. The bracket key on the left side will make my brush smaller, versus the right side, which is going to make my brush bigger. So you can use those two shortcuts to kind of speed things up instead of having to click and play around with Photoshop. Nice. All right. All right, and then I do notice it is a little harsh right here, so I'm actually going to go back with my white brush. I'm going to turn down the flow. I'm actually going to turn down the opacity of my brush also. And we're just going to hit just the border here to just kind of make it a little more faded, not as harsh, so that when I bring the opacity back up, you can kind of see some of these leaves and textures coming through. All right, and last thing, I'm just going to bring my opacity back up. And now I do like this, but if you look on my layers right now, if I'm clicked on my forest layer, there's this little white box that surrounds the photo. That just means that I'm selected on the photo. So if I'm selected on the photo right now, I'm actually able to move it. Versus if I'm selected on the layer mask, it's just going to be moving the layer mask itself or whatever's underneath the layer mask. So I can move it around if I like to. I'm going to go about there. All right, and then once you're done, just make sure to save as a PSD to keep all your files together, and then submit when you're ready.